there was a fight for board members who sit atop the Exxon Mobil board. And this is the first time, it's my understanding, that something like this has happened. The Exxon board, essentially, or C-suite, they nominate a bunch of people to sit on the board, a bunch, 10, 12. And they do so because they want to make sure that the board members are on board, literally and figuratively, with the broad agenda of the company, which is to pull as much and extract as much fossil fuel from the ground as they can before government regulation sets in, or whatever parameters it is. And this has been ongoing, I guess, for a while. A hedge fund named Engine Number One, which was set up, and they would argue that it's really just that it isn't about ideology. This is according to Chris James, is quoted in the New York Times. It's about economics. Founder of Engine Number One said in an interview, "In economics is what has driven the adoption of some of the alternative fuel sources versus fossil fuels. We want there to be an acceptance of change." So Engine Number One teamed up with a bunch of big pension funds, including the New York State Common Retirement Fund and the California Public Employees Retirement System. And Engine Number One, which owns less than 1% of Exxon stock, began its campaign, I guess, about 4 or 5 months ago. And they got two of their candidates voted on to the board. And these candidates are people who believe that that ExxonMobil should turn their attention to alternative sources of energy. Exxon tried to head off the dissident investors, which apparently have included some descendants of John D. Rockefeller, who founded Standard Oil, which ultimately became Exxon. And there are two, I guess, board seats that are still extant that they still may win. I'm not sure what the election process is, but Exxon last week was trying to convince shareholders not to vote for these dissident board nominees. They said it would add 2 new directors to the board later this year, including a climate expert. One can only imagine what where that climate expert would come from.
The climate expert is just like a longtime Exxon executive, except with Groucho glasses on. So,
Yeah. But this hedge fund, Engine Number One, I don't know much about it other than it was started in, fairly recently, last year, presumably maybe to do this type of thing. And this is a big deal. It's a big deal because once you basically prevent these companies from pursuing certain business practices, we've talked about this in the past. This is, we need legislation. We need administrative help from the president, but we also sabotaging these companies or undercutting their agenda to extract all this oil. Also part of the repertoire. We should say, speaking of things going in the wrong direction, during the Trump administration, the Trump White House signed off on an oil and gas project on the North Slope of Alaska, which will supposedly produce more than 100,000 barrels of oil a day for the next 30 years. You'll recall that Biden is talking about pivoting this country away from fossil fuels, having emissions by 2030.
But pivoting in like a slow motion kind of Michael Jackson kind of way, right? Like
apparently that pivot is really slow. I mean, it's almost like it's almost as if he's just sort of like put on a pair of, I don't know, rollerblades and just letting the earth spin as a way of him pivoting.
It's a beautiful image.
Thank you. The project known as Willow is a multi-million-dollar plan from ConocoPhillips to drill in part of the National Petroleum Reserve. And the Biden administration could either have declined to defend the oil drilling or support a federal decision backed by the state of Alaska, which apparently some tribal nations as well. This is from the New York Times. Union and key officials, including Lisa Murkowski, who is a moderate Republican senator, somehow the Biden administration thinks will be some type of ally somewhere. I don't know in what context that could possibly happen, but they have decided that the Interior Department has said that the Trump administration decision complied with the environmental rules in place at the time, that the plaintiffs did not challenge the approval within the time limitations associated with the environmental review projects for the National Petroleum Reserve. So just a technicality. Conoco plans to install chillers into the permafrost, which is fast melting because of climate change, to keep it solid enough to support the equipment to drill for oil. In other words, it's a race between climate change and the ability of ConocoPhillips to prevent climate change from happening in this very small area that will support its drilling thing. And then they will pull the oil out, burn that oil, obviously, after they sell it, which will then contribute to the climate change that they are fighting to continue to drill that oil. I mean, that is...
It is absolutely fanciful that gaining Murkowski's favor in any way, fine, say she's indebted to you, right? Say she's indebted to the Biden administration. I'll give you that complete fiction. You need 60 votes for anything outside of reconciliation. So are you going to allow for oil drilling in 9 other states, or are you going to give away massive campaign promises in order to win over Lamar Alexander or whatever the other senators are? I mean, like, there is zero benefit to currying Murkowski's favor. Can you come up with?
I can come up with one scenario.
What?
And it is fantastical and completely hypothetical and even more improbable, but it is someone defects from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party, then Lisa Murkowski defects to the Democratic Party. Highly unlikely, almost totally unimaginable, but that's the only possible scenario I could imagine that this would have, what the value of this would be. Maybe they think there is value in having a failure to, I don't know. I mean, maybe
filibuster reform. Has she said no, right? She's not gonna reform the filibuster.
I don't know. The only thing I do know, she's getting a Trumpy challenge in her primary. I don't know how worried she is about it. Republicans last time around ditched her a little bit. And so, she went in as that write-in. I don't know. But man, I hope, I mean, I can't imagine. It's hard for me to imagine what would be worth it unless somehow she ended up voting and was the deciding vote in, the Green New Deal. And I can't work out a scenario. I don't have the brain capacity to work out a scenario where that would be the case. But if it was, then I'll be the first one to eat my, hat. I don't know what hat.
You're not a hat guy, are you?
I wear a lot of baseball caps.
Oh, really? I've never seen you in one.
Well, I mean, I don't wear it on the show.
Well, that's usually where I see you. Yes.